Hi, and welcome to Gathering Momentum for Your Life. I'm Christine Casten, and this is a wonderful topic, I think, today that many of us have experienced, that we face as we continue through our journey in life, especially if you've been in a role for a while. You might actually find that you face this critical thing in your life. And what is that thing? It is burnout. There are a lot of us who have experienced burnout in the roles that we're in, whether that's a day-to-day work, that's as a parent, that is as someone who's in a leadership role or in ministry. There are a lot of different ways that we can address the fact that we are getting into a place of being burned out. So, first of all, let's just say it's real. It really happens. It's not something in your mind. It's not something that you made up. It's not something that you're just being lazy. It's actually a true, real experience that you enter into with your body, mind, and soul. And so I really want to talk to us about the slippery slope of obligation as we often slip and slide our way through our obligation into burnout. And what happens in that place is the obligations that we step into tend to expand. We may expect them to take maybe 10 hours a week. We may expect them to take 5 hours a week, but sometimes those obligations actually expand to be much broader and much longer time commitments than we're expecting. And what that means is that overlaps into other areas that we have. And a lot of times in that space, what ends up being compromised has to do with family or has to do with free time. Usually we sacrifice ourselves in that place of obligation. And when we do that, we have to recognize that we have lost the healthy boundaries that we need in our life. So, how do you reestablish the healthy boundaries again? What does that look like for you to move out of burnout or move out of being close to it into a place where you can refresh and revive? And so part of that is that you need to look at the fact that your boundaries with people, with your workload, and with refreshing need to be in place and need to be balanced. And just to remind you, Jesus did step away. He did not spend 24/7 with his disciples. And, if any of you guys have watched The Chosen, and you see how much they bicker and how much they, don't interact with each other in a way that is encouraging to those around them, there is a lot of things that can drain on you, especially when you're also ministering to others who have extreme needs. So when we're in that place and we realize that, hey, we aren't stepping away like Jesus did to refresh, we aren't taking the time to be able to step into a place where we are assessing those boundaries, where we're looking at what it is that we need to do in our life that will reorganize where we are. And when we realize that, we need to say, that needs to be a wake-up call where we say, hey, I have got to do that. So we need to prioritize. We need to prioritizing. And the way that happens is that we are able to step into a place of refreshing with God. We gain perspective in that place. We're able to organize our thoughts. We're able to be proactive with our schedule, and we may need to reestablish some of those boundaries. There are different rhythms or patterns that we get into sometimes, and especially for those people who are ministry leaders, we tend to get into times where we get pulled and we get drawn into a conversation that not only is it something that someone needs from us, but they may not actually want to move out of that place. And so that just continues to drain on us because it's a cycle. And we can get sucked into that cycle. We can get sucked into family dynamics. We can get sucked into different things that happen in our lives that cause our focus to be moved away from the intentionality of our process and our growth and our journey with God, and put our minds toward the work. Now, I do want to address one of the things that we do face is in both the Western and the Eastern cultures, we have a very strong cultural emphasis on work ethic and the idea that we need to work really hard, or that faith without works is dead. But what we do is we actually say works is more important than anything, and we again move out of balance. So we enter into that slippery slope of obligation, of working really hard, but not necessarily working smart, and also not working in a way that keeps us in connection with God and keeps us in the place of longevity. One time I remember listening to a leader who was speaking, and he was talking about how he had started with a group. He had started, his ministry journey with a group of about 25 people. And over the years, all of those people had fallen away, whether that was because they died, or that was because they ended up with health issues. They ended up with physical health issues. They ended up with mental health issues. And some of them just walked away from ministry at all because they just were done. They just reached that place of burnout, and they never really understood how to refresh in their space. And so for me, it was something that when I heard that and I thought about that, and I thought about the call that God has on our lives, I wanted to make sure that I was in a place I could be very aware of where I am in my journey, and how close I am to that burnout line. And there have been a very few times that I have actually gotten to it. In the 12 or 14 years that I have been in ministry, I've actually been working for the church and things like that for even longer. But in those spaces and in those times, there were often times that I got to that line, that burnout line. And when I did, early on, I didn't know what to do with it. And so God in his grace, a lot of times would actually move us. He would move us to a completely different city, and I would start over. So I'd have this time of refreshing, and then I'd step into stuff and, do the same cycle again. And so God had to teach me how to be healthy in what I did. He had to teach me how to recognize the signs that I was moving toward burnout, which essentially means that my priorities and the way I'm organizing my time is not actually in alignment with him, because he brings refreshment in the places of alignment. And so the other thing that I had to also realize was that when I am out of alignment with him, I'm doing things in my own strength, not in being strengthened or empowered by him. So there's a fine line sometimes when we step into taking something and running in it without God. He may be in our hearts and we may love him, but we're actually doing it without him. And we're actually moving into a place where we're working really hard for him, but not with him, and definitely not from him. So I hope that you understand the difference in those words. When we're operating for him, we don't actually need God. We don't need his help to do what we're doing. We've got this. We've got it figured out. We kind of check that box and we're going to do it. And that is one of the fastest ways to get into burnout, because you don't have his refreshing in that place. With God means we're in partnership with him, and that we're operating in a way that we're closely tied to him, that we're connecting to him. Hey, God, is this the right direction? Do I need to tweak this? So we're in good conversation with him, and we're walking alongside him. And that is a place where we can maintain where we are. We can get refreshed, but usually there's an ebb and flow of burnout with that. We'll be refreshed, and then we'll kind of burn out. Then we'll be refreshed, and we'll kind of burn out, because we aren't really truly in that place of full alignment. We're in partial alignment with him. And then we've got the third area, which is operating from him, right? And so we live, move, and have our being in the Lord. And when we're in that place of full alignment with him, what we're actually doing is we're partnering with him in such a way that everything we do is from that place of his heart. And when we're in that space and we're in that place, there is a refreshing that comes. There is a rejuvenation that comes. And so as we step into a place of really considering where are we? Are we operating for him, where we're needing people to pour back into us? That's actually how we get into that superstar mentality. A lot of times that God is so putting his finger on changing right now. And that's that when I get up as a superstar in a superstar mentality, working really hard for God, then the only way I can get refreshing is by my ego being stroked, if you will, by the people around me. And that becomes, again, a very slippery slope, because as soon as people aren't affirming me, or as people have issues with what I'm doing, or they're critical of what I'm doing, then now my emotions and my well-being are tied to what others think about me, right? So then you move into people pleasing, or you move into a more controlling type of culture that you develop around you, so that you can make sure you're getting refreshed. Very dangerous, and it's not what we want in operating with God. So when we're living in that place of living, moving, and having our being from him, what we're actually doing is we're in a place of full submission to him. Our confidence, our ability to see, our perspective, our understanding is filtered through our relationship with him, and the direction comes from him. So we learn to be willing to let some things maybe lie fallow, that aren't where he's putting his focus on, and we focus on the things where his focus is. So one of the questions that you can ask is, God, help me see these things in my life through your eyes. Help me understand where I need to prioritize my time, and where I need to put my focus on in this moment. What is it that is your priority? Make your priority mine, Lord, that kind of thing. And so when we do that, we can actually, if we were starting to slide, like if we were in one of those two areas of either working hard for God, or we were working with him, but not completely aligned with him, then we can actually shift into that better alignment with him when we step back and refresh. That's why I think Jesus went into the secret place. He stepped back away from the disciples. He took time to ask the Lord, what's next? What are you wanting to show me, so that I can see what you're seeing? I can hear what you're speaking and speak that. I can do what I see you doing. And in that place, we are actually in a place of constant refreshing, because we're operating from that place of connection with God. So I just want to encourage you, if you feel like you're in either a working for God rhythm, or you're in a working with God but not fully aligned with him rhythm, there's an opportunity for you to pull back and just to take a moment of pause and ask the Lord to help align you with his heart. If it's a deeper alignment, or if you're in a place of transition and change where God is taking you into and through some upgrades in your life, you'll need to do that too. Because what happens in those upgrades is that you change, and God's priorities may shift. And if you just make an assumption that everything's going to stay the same, then you'll be operating in a way that you're actually moved into partnership with him, but not necessarily fully from him. And the reason you do that is because you kind of just make an assumption that the things that have been will continue to be. And you just keep facilitating that process, when he actually may want you to lay that down, or he may want you to shift out, or he may want you to expand the way you look at things, or change the way you look at something. It may not be that the thing in front of you actually changes. It may just be the way you see it changes, and the way you interact with it is going to shift. So all of those things, those are, broader concepts that we could discuss on other conversations. But I do want to encourage you that if you are moving into a place where you're feeling burned out, or you're feeling like you're not in full alignment with him, take a moment to step back. take time, whether it's, 30 seconds or it's a week or it's a month or whatever you need to get back into refreshing and full alignment with him. And you will be able to overcome burnout, and you will be able to navigate away from it if you're getting close to that line. I hope you guys have a great, wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Until that time, this is Christine Casten, excited for you to gather momentum for your life. And I look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday at 11 for our next conversation. I'll talk to you soon.